It's not a prescription. It's not a medication. It's not an expensive biohack. You just $1 a day. If you took 10, you do in your comfort of your own kitchen, your home. It's really affordable, easy, and I believe truly in this day and age necessary for us to turn around the current situations we find ourselves in with all chronic diseases escalating and no end in sight for a solution. And I think algae offers nutrients that could fill that gap.
Yeah, that's incredible. I didn't realize that it could actually kick out some of those cancer cells. I didn't know the spirulina could actually do that.
Well, it's the
That's pretty amazing.
phycocyanin in the spirulina that, and
Right.
so chlorella has other attributes that do some great things, but because it's the phycocyanin, and it's so fascinating. So just one more thing about the way that this is all happening. So remember the relay race, in a relay race, or the molecules that are here's that image again, where they pass the electron from one to the next. So in a healthy mitochondria, those molecules that are passing the electrons to one another, they're very close to one another, so they can pass the electron along. So two things happen: you get lots of great ATP, cellular energy, and you don't get a lot of leakage of unpassed electrons, right? So everything's working properly when you have a healthy mitochondria. When you have an unhealthy mitochondria, it starts to expand. And so what happens is those molecules that are supposed to be close to one another to pass the electrons to one another to create ATP, they get further and further apart from one another. They can't make the pass. So two things happen. This is why your ATP cellular production drops, because they can't make the pass, and so you don't get the full ATP production. But the other downside is that electron that should have been passed to create ATP doesn't disappear. What it does is it leaks out to the rest of the mitochondria and turns into a free radical, which
Mm.
causes more cellular damage. So now it expands even more. And then eventually what happens is it bursts. And that is called necrosis. And that's when you have inflammation, because
Mm.
whatever was in that sick mitochondria, it blows up literally and spills out to the rest of the cell. And this causes damage to the cell and to the rest of the mitochondria. This is why disease escalates so quickly, is because of what's going on in the mitochondria. And so we can actually correct that process, stop it and reverse it. Here's a picture of a healthy mitochondria. This is a real picture, and the damage where you see all the empty space.
Mhm.
So it's pretty powerful knowing that Mother Nature has provided us with something that is so necessary. It was necessary at all times, but never more so than now, when we're living longer but not living better. Aging is natural, declining is not, and we don't want to just treat the symptoms and struggle along and stay alive while we're on, an oxygen tank, or the average adult over 65 is on 5 medications. I'm on none, and I'm definitely over the age of 65. So I mean, I'm really here to be a representative of Mother Nature, to say, look, I got something for you here. It's food. It was the first life on Earth. It's got scientific studies behind it. It works. It's been working safely for 65 years. It just needed someone like me to explain the science, to be sure that to help other people understand what's going on in our bodies, because we know how our car works, we know how our cell phone works. We literally do not know how our body works. And I say it's sort of like a recipe. I don't cook very much, so if I do cook, I need a recipe, and I need the list of ingredients I need for my recipe. And so I'm telling you, there's a recipe for health, and includes things like sleep, movement, oxygen, love, and good nutrition. And spirulina and chlorella provide you the nutritional piece. So, and that's part of your recipe for life. You need these other areas as well. And by the way, if you hadn't noticed, they're all free, or almost free. Sleep is free, movement is free, breathing is free, sunlight is actually free, and $1 a day, algae is almost free. So you could add on all these really cool biohacks, and I encourage you to do cold plunging. Hey, just take a cold shower. If you don't have the device, you don't want to go to a cryo center. Red light therapy is fantastic. I have 3 or 4 devices, but if you don't want a device, just you get the most red light
Especially
at
if you
sunrise.
stack it with the allergy too.
Absolutely. You get
You
better
get a
results
photo
in
bio,
all of your
yeah.
biohacks. We always recommend the spirulina before your plunge or your red light or cryo or any sauna, before a sauna, because it gets absorbed so quickly. And then you take the chlorella afterwards because it's the cleanup crew. It
Mm-hmm.
kills bacteria and absorbs toxins. So whatever was released during the sauna, during the cryo, during the cold plunge, um, or the massage, or whatever it is you're doing, take the chlorella afterwards to mop up all this stuff, because you don't, when you release toxins, you don't want them hanging around. You want to get rid of them. And that's what chlorella's job is to take out the garbage.
I wanted
Nutrition
to,
goes in with spirulina, garbage comes out with chlorella.
yeah, for both the spirulina and the chlorella, and I'm just on the topic of cancer because I was just thinking, and you were talking about just the SOD that's created, but also don't these two types of algae, don't they also create a more oxygenated environment? And speaking about
Okay.
what you mentioned about and cancer cannot grow in a it grows in hypoxia, right? So if we can
Yeah.
create more
Yeah.
oxygen, wouldn't that also be helpful?
Well, that's what got me started. My sister's doctor told her to have an alkaline diet. An alkaline diet is very high oxygen. So these are, there's no food that's more alkaline than algae. So there's nothing that creates more oxygen in the cell. And remember, what the superoxide dismutase does in the mitochondria, it converts the free radicals to, drum roll, water and oxygen, right?
Wow. So
when
there you
when
go.
when you when you aren't getting the free radicals being decreased or neutralized so they can be turned into water and oxygen, you're not getting the oxygen. That's one of the
Yeah.
reasons why it's so acidic in your mitochondria and your cell, which leads to more cancer, because you're not getting the oxygenation. That's why also there's hydrogen tabs. Like Gary Brecka's got a new line of hydrogen tabs, he and his son. There's so many things you can do to oxygenate your cells. Wim Hof has a great breathing process. Anything that gets oxygen into your cells will help keep it alkaline, keep the pH high, keep the oxygen high, to prevent the hyperbaric chambers would be great. But these, those are hacks that cost money. I'm trying to help people with things that may not cost money. And back to cancer, if people are going through chemotherapy, please, and maybe this is, I can switch over to chlorella.
Yeah.
Please be sure you're taking chlorella after the maybe 4 or 5 hours after your treatment, and definitely for the every day for the week between treatments, because it pulls out heavy metals, including radiation. Of course, that's what chemotherapy is. They used this at Chernobyl to pull out the radiation after the bomb. They used this at Hiroshima. They used it at Fukushima. In fact, Fukushima disaster 7 or 8 years ago, the global chlorella supply was bought up by everyone in Asia within 24 hours, because they know this pulls out radiation. So if you're on chemotherapy, this will prevent you from being nauseous in between treatments. It's really, really helpful. And also, anybody who is sick, you probably have a hard time digesting food. You probably feel nauseous eating. You're probably constipated. Well, spirulina will get you the nourishment you need. Just swallow them. You'll get all the same nourishment. It'll take 20 minutes instead of one. So spirulina is good for the nourishment, and no flavor, nothing. And then chlorella, it pulls out all the toxins, and it stimulates what's called peristalsis, which is a fancy way of saying a bowel movement. People aren't talking about constipation, and they should be, because almost everybody's constipated. If you're on medications, if you're sick, if you're older, you can't digest, you don't have enzymes, if you're traveling, if you're stressed, I'd say everybody checks at least 1 or 2 of those boxes off. And will give you a bowel movement. This is one of the reasons why we recommend chlorella before bed, so that will get into your system, because also you have a detox repair cycle when you're sleeping. So if you have chlorella in your body while you're sleeping, this will have a better repair. It has something called chlorella growth factor, which stimulates the growth of your cells. It has the highest tryptophan in the world, which also helps you get into a deep sleep. It will
Wow.
help the heart cell wall attaches to toxins. The chlorophyll, highest chlorophyll in the world. That's why it's called chlorella, because of the chlorophyll. Chlorophyll kills bacteria. I tell people, poor algae gets a bum rap because when they see algae blooms on their favorite beach and they get mad at it because it closed it. Well, you didn't see the toxins and bacteria that were in the water, but you can see the algae. Algae is the cleanup crew. It's Mother
Yeah.
Nature's cleanup crew in the oceans and in your body. So it's like going to a Taylor Swift concert, and after the concert, you look at the floor and it's like litter, garbage everywhere. Chlorella's the cleanup crew. And I tell people it pulls out the junk in your trunk, because if you haven't had a bowel movement, the stuff that's sitting down there is stuff your body didn't work, and your blood will circulate around and pull out the toxins and recirculate them. It's like having a garbage truck parked in front of your house permanently. That's not very fun. So these are effortless, proven, nutrient dense whole food, but you have to get high quality, or you're going to be missing the key attributes, like the phycocyanin that kills cancer cells, and the superoxide dismutase that protects your mitochondria. By the way, there is superoxide dismutase in chlorella as well. It's just it's 2/3 less than what's in spirulina. So and because spirulina, your brain has the most mitochondria, and because the superoxide dismutase in spirulina heals your mitochondria, I now call spirulina brain food, because it really helps. So ADHD, autism, any kind of depression,
Catherine,
post-traumatic
have
stress.
there been any studies on with algae and any of these things, these mental health disorders? And I know I was telling you about my little guy also who had a TBI, a brain injury, and I know you were talking about, yeah, well,
Yeah. Well,
20% of your mitochondria is in the brain. So what do you think is going to happen,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
You know,
Well, a
but have there
year
been any
ago,
studies? Yeah, with mental health. Curious.
absolutely. There's lots of studies, and we did our own because we wanted to know for sure if ours was working. So last year we worked with a nonprofit group called the Gray Team. It's grayteam.org if you're interested. Their main purpose is to stop the suicide rate of military veterans, which is
Mm,
at a heartbreaking 35 to 50%. I mean, it's unconscionable.
wow.
It's so sad. So they're trying, excuse me, everything they can do to turn that around. They kept meeting us at, Dave Asprey's show and other biohacks. So they said, well, let's try a little test. So we had a small group of their military veterans who had been discharged for about 10 years, still had post-traumatic stress disorder, still had trouble sleeping,